Okay, guys, sorry about that. Here's part two. The free version of this software only gives you 15 minutes, which I was unaware of, but I just found that out. So 15 minutes is what I got. Otherwise, you're getting two parts to these. Let's pick back up. So where we were at is that ATP synthase is going to go ahead and allow these H pluses, these protons, to go from high concentration to low. That falling, that release of free energy is going to allow inorganic phosphate to join up with ADP in order to phosphorylate ADP to ATP. That is also going to be an input into the Calvin cycle. So where we've got main sources of energy ultimately coming from light is in the form of ATP driven by chemiosmosis, and from the reduction of NADP plus to NADPH, right? So these are main outputs. And then as a waste product, thankfully for us, is some oxygen gas, which is really great for cellular respiration. The next image that I'm showing you is just pretty much the photosystems that are just in some more detail here, right? So that's all we're looking at. As we get this ATP production, ultimately from here, right? So that's what this is showing you with step 5. They're just showing it in a kind of like a different spot, but really it's oxidative phosphorylation is what's happening there. So we've got light driving down into these light reactions. Why they're called the light reactions. Remember, water is going to come into this. Ultimately, water is going to donate its electrons and its H pluses. Oxygen leaves then as a waste product, which we're showing right here. And then these are going to be the inputs into something called the Calvin cycle, which we will talk about later. This is just an analogy that I really, really, really like for how the light reactions work. It makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe it makes a lot of sense to you. I'm a fairly visual learner, I think. That's what I found out about myself. So if you find yourself sort of like a visual learner, this might help a little bit. In which the photon here is just potential energy, which is shown by this construction worker guy, I guess, with a huge hammer. What he's going to do is move this hammer back and go boom and slam it down right down onto this little platform. That's potential energy. That excites this electron, so it's going to jump up. And this guy is going to be standing at the top of the platform. And this guy's platform is called photosystem 2. And he is going to hold on to that electron. So notice that this electron's higher than this one now. So this has higher potential energy, right? He's slowly going to release that electron. And as he releases that electron, that release is going to allow ATP to be made. Now, ultimately, this is a very simple explanation because what we know is going on here is chemiosmosis. It's H plus protons building up in the thylakoid space, going down into the stroma through ATP synthase in order to drive the production of ATP. So we're leaving out a lot of detail here, but that's ultimately what the system is showing. That electron then gets dropped off into photosystem 1. So photosystem 1 is going to accept that due to a linear electron flow. This thing is going to flow down here to photosystem 1. Another photon comes in and goes boom and excites the electron. It gets caught up here as well by a different form of chlorophyll. So this gets caught by the chlorophyll B. This gets dropped. This electron is dropped into a carrier, which is the NADP plus. That gets reduced to NADPH once it has this electron attached along with the hydrogen. That's one of the inputs into the next system along with ATP, and oxygen is a waste product. So I really like that as a great visual for what the light reactions are and what you need to know about them. You should be able to explain all those things. It is not enough for you guys just to listen to this podcast once. I don't think I can stress that enough. Keep in mind that I think most of you guys are college bound. When you go to college, this is mainly on you. This mainly has to be on you. So if you're really, really struggling with this stuff, the only thing that I can really say to you is come ask me questions or spend more time with it. So the most important thing that you can possibly do out of these podcasts is bring questions. These things are completely useless and a complete waste of my time if we're not bringing questions into class. Like, what can I explain? What really confusing concepts, because this is very difficult content, can we use our time together, these 85 minutes a day, in order to prep you best for the AP exam? Bring questions. That is the only way that this is going to work. So ideally in a lecture situation, I would love for you guys to ask me questions, but most of the time you're just kind of taking things in and writing things down. The benefit of this is that you guys get time to pause it or rewind it or write down any questions that you have for me, take notes at your own pace. You get to do all that stuff kind of on your own here. But this won't work if we come into class tomorrow and I say, okay, guys, what questions do you have about the podcast that I released last night? And if there's no questions, This is how I'm going to diagnose that situation. I'm going to say, okay, if there's no questions, then the content is clear. Let's move on. If there are questions, then we can spend some time addressing those. So this has to be driven by you guys. You have to own this. That's how we should use this. Okay, this is your class, not mine. I am here to help you. So hopefully this helps. I can't wait to hear what you think about the podcast tomorrow. I hope they're helpful. I'm sorry the first part there got cut off, but ultimately you're getting about 20 minutes of lecture here. And what it would have taken us a lot longer time. So tomorrow we can be in a lab scenario where you have time to answer some questions, which I think is actually a really great thing for an AP class in which we're covering just an amazing amount of content in such a short period of time. Okay, so I hope you guys found this helpful. I can't wait to hear your feedback tomorrow. Take some notes, really dive into this, spend some time with it. It's the only way that you're going to get better. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.